So in your lecture, you spoke a lot about one particular financial institution, Citigroup. And recently, a federal judge rejected a plea bargain from from the SEC to Citigroup, I think of $250 million, if my memory serves me. Um, do you think that that ruling and now Citigroup being brought to court is do you think that Occupy Wall Street is responsible for that in some way? No.
I don't.
Darn.
I think that it is a particular judge who has a very good take, although one that may well get reversed in very hostile appellate courts. What Citicorp is alleged to have done is an obscenity. It's alleged to have structured a deal by deliberately taking crappy assets, selling it to its customers as good assets, and simultaneously engaging in derivative transactions that were betting that the stuff would crash and burn and make Citicorp wealthy. So this is shaft your customer to make a fortune for yourself. And the SEC, this was not the kind of settlement you were even talking about. This is a typical stupid SEC consent decree. And in a typical stupid SEC consent decree, the respondent, the corporation, admits nothing. And therefore you never get any precedent. And so you never get any effective relief. You just get dollars. And it turns out the SEC is easy to buy off. The dollars sound large, hundreds of millions of dollars, but for Citicorp, they're chump change and such. And so the judge is absolutely right about how the SEC should be run, and the SEC is up in arms about this. The Wall Street Journal is out with an article the day we're doing this interview saying, oh, no, this might prevent future sweetheart deals with the SEC. So we need to get this guy reversed. So I think the judge is very good. I doubt that it was because of the Occupy movement, but it's the type of thing, this plus occupiers plus other things, gives people hope that you can actually change things. And it's that hope, that concept that there is an alternative. We really can do things. That is what is most essential right now.
So I had a little bit different question. What do you think the role is between popular education around economics and building a broad, diverse movement for economic change in the country?
That's a question near and dear to us here at the University of Missouri, Kansas City, because we're one of the very few heterodox economic departments that remain. So in our view, economics is one of the biggest problems in causing recurrent, intensifying crises. We haven't talked about it in my discussion today, but my doctorate is in white-collar criminology. That's what I do in particular. And in our jargon, economics is incredibly criminogenic. That means it creates an environment that produces widespread crime, in this case fraud. And how does it do it? It does things like, I quoted Mankiw, one of the most famous economists in America, saying, well, it would be irrational for a CEO, if he could get away with it, not to loot his corporation. I mean, this is why so many business schools are basically fraud factories in the modern era. They're taught. This is not just some prof. This is one of the most elite professors of economics in the world. And he teaches students. It's no wonder that students walked out in his class recently in protest. And that was very certainly prompted by the occupier movement.
So here for Kansas City's occupation, say you were an organizer with the Occupy Kansas City movement, which financial institutions locally would you target and why?
I wouldn't target the local institutions. I'd target what we call the systemically dangerous institutions. These are the roughly 20 institutions where the administration, not just this administration, ones before, said if any of these fail, it will cause a global crisis. To which the obvious question is, well, then why do we have them around? Right? If we're rolling the dice 20 times a day in America alone to see which, not if, when the next one blows up and causes a global crisis, that is insane. The administration, and again, it was their predecessors did the same thing, calls these things systemically important organizations, like they deserve a gold star. But they're so massive that they're horribly inefficient. So there's a complete win-win. We could remove the systemic risk to the entire globe, mind you, and we could have a more efficient bank, and we could have a more humane bank if we shrank them. So we knew that Dodd-Frank, the reform bill, wasn't serious when it allowed the continued existence of these systemically dangerous institutions. So I would target the systemically dangerous institutions, and I would demand that they be eliminated within 5 years. We don't have to tell them how to do it. We just give them orders. They have to shrink to below, say, $50 billion in assets within the next 5 years.
And then specifically, are those targets here in the Kansas City area that have offices? And what are some of those institutions here locally?
There are absolutely places here, and so all the biggest, that's the 20 largest banks in America. And yes, Citi and Wells Fargo and Bank of America all have presences in the general area that we're at. Randy Ray, a colleague of mine here at UMKC Economics, and I have written that it's time to foreclose on Bank of America, that it richly deserves, for all of its hundreds of thousands of cases of fraud, to be placed into receivership and can be the first candidate for being gotten rid of.
So one thing that your talk definitely makes clear tonight is that old saying that history teaches, but it often has no students. So if we could take a note from history, this new movement, how is it that we got the regulations that were gutted in recent decades, and how might that inform a new social movement that's calling for new regulation?
Yeah, well, it was a combination of all kinds of things. There were elite intellectuals who created a climate with good research that said corporations are a tremendous problem. They don't operate on behalf of shareholders. They operate in really bad fashion. The particular volume was called the Economic Bible of the New Deal and such. So there's that sort of academic aspect. There was a pragmatist. FDR, President Franklin Delano Roosevelt, was the quintessential pragmatist, right? He'd try anything. He'd try 3 different things simultaneously, some of them inconsistent. He made sure he got advice from people with very different views and such. So you need pragmatists out there who are willing to try things. And he had visionaries, a whole bunch of different visionaries, of folks, you know, who are a little interesting at a party. Like if you say start talking to you, 3 hours later, you know, they're still talking about their issue. But some of those were really good ideas. And then you just had the huge mass of the unemployed and the people who weren't going to take it anymore, who were absolutely fed up. So social movements come from all of those folks, and there were good songs too back then. We need some new good songs. We need another resurgence of folk music, I think. Maybe rap folk, you know, be an interesting fusion.
You heard it here. Any more questions? All right, well, Professor Black, thank you very much for taking time to speak with us tonight. Thanks for doing the talk.
Well, thank you, and thank all the people that are active in trying to make things better.
Thanks.
Appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
All right, look forward to it. Next
Yeah.
chance we get.